Hi guys, welcome to my channel ZIBAKERIZ, where I show you how to create beautiful decorated cakes, cupcakes, and so much more. So let's get started right away. Over here I have some lemon cupcakes that I've baked, and these cupcake liners I have gotten from the dollar store, but I will try to find something similar and leave a link to that in the description box down below. I also filled my cupcakes with extra batter just so that I can get that dome on top for my floral cupcake bouquets. And over here I have some American buttercream, and you can see it has a little bit of this yellow hue, so I do want to offset that with some white gel based food coloring. I like to use the Chef Master gel based food coloring, and if you don't have that, you can also use Wilton, or if you don't have that, you can also use some purple gel food coloring to offset that yellow color as well. So I do like to add a generous amount just because I do want a nice bright white buttercream. And then we're just going to start mixing all of that buttercream with that color together. This process of mixing in the food coloring into your buttercream is also going to allow you to get rid of any of your air bubbles in your buttercream, and that's going to give you a nice silky smooth buttercream to work with. I do get asked a lot of the times how my buttercream is so nice and smooth. This process of just mixing back and forth and kind of spreading your buttercream against the side of the bowl and just kind of moving your buttercream in this back and forth motion is going to get rid of those air bubbles and give you this nice silky smooth buttercream to work with. So I do want my buttercream to be a little bit more brighter and whiter, so I'm going to add a little bit more of that white gel food coloring. And then again, you just want to give everything a nice mix until everything is nice and well incorporated in your buttercream. So at this point, my buttercream is nice and bright white. So I'm going to be using this to color the top of my cupcakes, as well as going to be using this a little later on for my buttercream flowers. So over here, I have this tapered spatula, and I'm going to be using this to help me cover the top domes of my cupcakes. So what you want to do is, first of all, apply a generous amount of your buttercream on the top of your cupcake. And instead of going like this back and forth motion, you kind of want to push that buttercream down towards the edge of your cupcake liner, kind of using the edge of the cupcake liner as your support for not going outside of the liner. And then we're just going to roughly smooth off the top with the same tapered spatula, as well as clean up the sides with your spatula as well. Once we have a rough covered crumb coated top, we're going to take this acetate sheet and we're going to go over the top, going to give us a nice smooth top to work with. So you just want to try to do it as best as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect, just because this is kind of like a rough crumb coat, just like you would for a cake. And then the excess amount, you just want to scrape that off the side of your bowl and then clean up the sides with a paper towel. So once you've cleaned up the sides with the paper towel, you can always go back and clean it up with the acetate sheet. This is just going to give you a nicer, cleaner finish to your cupcake as well. And I'm just going back and smoothing off the top dome as well as best as I can. So now I have this perfect cupcake to work with. So I'm just going to repeat the same steps on all my other cupcakes. So I'm just going to show you quickly. Once again, you want to apply a generous amount of buttercream to the top of your cupcake. Then you want to use the edge of your cupcake liner to act as a guide so that you don't go over the cupcake liner, and just pull down. And then smooth off the top of your cupcake with the tapered spatula. Once you've done that, then we're just going to go back with the acetate sheet and then smooth off the top of our cupcakes as best as I can. And this is what's going to give us a nice clean finish. And then try to clean up the sides of your cupcake liner with the acetate sheet as well. And then lastly, following that same process again, I haven't shown you all of it in detail because I'm just kind of going over that same process over and over again, where we're applying that buttercream on top generously, then we're pulling down, and then we're going to just clean up the sides again. So you can see that the process is very repetitive. It's not too difficult. You just want to make sure that you have a nice, clean, smooth surface to work with. Adding that finish at the top with the acetate sheet does give you a nice clean finish and makes it easier for you to actually work with on your cupcake as well. So you can see that, you're just going to clean up the sides with the acetate sheet, and then we're going to go back and taking a paper towel, you just want to clean up the edges of your cupcake as well. So at this point, I am really happy with all of my crumb coated cupcakes. So at this point, I have a nice smooth finish to the top of my cupcakes, and it's a great base for me to create my buttercream florals. So now that I have a perfect base for my cupcakes, I'm going to start coloring my buttercream. So over here I have some sky blue gel food coloring by Chef Master, and I'm going to add in a small amount of that blue just because if you end up adding in too much, it is harder to take away. So I do like to start off with a little bit. You just want to give everything a nice mix. And again, this process is also getting rid of any of those air bubbles in our buttercream, giving us a nice silky smooth buttercream to work with. So you can see this blue is a very bright sky blue color. So I'm going to add in a little bit of that red gel food coloring. That's going to give me more of this darker dull blue. You can see that I ended up adding in too much because the gel food coloring was a little runny. So I'm just going to take out that excess gel food coloring and put that in a separate bowl in case I need it a little later on. I highly recommend adding in a little bit and then gradually building your color just because it is harder to go the other way around. So you can see that I'm just giving everything a nice mix, and it is very light. You can barely tell that I added in the red. So I'm just going to go back and add a little bit more of that red gel food coloring that I took out earlier. And this is a very important process of coloring your buttercream. It's building your color. You won't get that color right away. It's something that you're going to get gradually. So you just kind of have to trust the process with color mixing. So you can see that it kind of looks like a little bit of a pinkish purplish color now. But I don't want that color, so I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit more of that blue gel food coloring as well. And again, I feel like I've added in a little bit too much, so I'm just going to take some of that out and put that to the side of my bowl. Give it a nice mix. I was having a little bit of difficulty mixing, so I'm just going to take that excess gel food coloring and put that in a separate bowl and continue mixing my buttercream. And you just want to mix everything nice and consistently, and then you just want to go against the side of the bowl and kind of mix. At this point, I am pretty happy with the shade of blue that I have, so I'm not going to add in the remaining gel food coloring that I had taken out. So this color is very similar to the color of the cupcake liner. So I'm going to go ahead and use this color that I've achieved, and I'm really happy with it. If you are ever confused on how to achieve a certain color, you can always reference the color wheel to help you. So over here, I've added a piece of plastic wrap on my surface. So I'm just going to take my white buttercream, and I'm going to be placing it as the base in the shape of a rectangle. So I'm going to use that same white buttercream that I used for the surface of my cupcakes. And I'm just going to generously add a generous amount on the top of my plastic wrap, and then just kind of spread that out. I was adding it with the spatula, but if you switch over to a tapered spatula, it is a lot more easier to kind of spread that out. So you want to go in with your tapered spatula and kind of just go in one direction and try to push all of that buttercream, trying to get an even layer as much as possible. And you just want to kind of spread that on an angle and kind of create the shape of a rectangle. This is basically another form of being able to add two-tone colors to your buttercream. So one I've shown in my previous videos is basically on the sides of your piping bag, and this one is basically adding a thin layer of your colored buttercream. So over here I'm adding the blue in the center of my buttercream rectangle. So you just want to go ahead with that same tapered spatula, and you just want to add a little bit of that blue buttercream right in the center of that rectangle. That's what's basically going to help us get that two-tone buttercream floral cupcake design. So I don't want to add too much of that blue since I want most of my cupcake to be white, and then just a hint of that blue coming through. And then kind of just smooth that off. And then you want to lift the plastic wrap from one side and kind of wrap it towards the other side where the white buttercream meets, and kind of form it in the shape of a log, and then just kind of turn the whole thing with the plastic wrap. Now I'm going to prepare my piping bag. So over here I have a disposable piping bag, and inside that I'm going to be adding in this coupler. So this basically allows you to add your piping tip on the top and then switch it around whenever you want, but I'm just going to keep one tip for this. So then you just want to score the top of the coupler and then cut off the tip. So the piping tip that I'm going to be using for my cupcake bouquets is this Wilton tip number 21, which is this beautiful open drop flower tip. So I'm going to be using this and carefully placing that on top of the piping coupler that I've added, and then you just want to take that second piece and secure your piping tip in place. Once it is nice and secure, so then we can go ahead and take that buttercream roll or log that we formed earlier, and we're just going to place that inside of the piping bag. So it is very long, so you can see that it's a bit too long. So what I'm going to do is I would prefer, you can actually take it and twist it and then fold it in half, but I'm going to just take that log and cut that in half, just so the warmth of my hand isn't going to make the buttercream lose its form. So you just want to cut right through the center with some scissors. So now we have two of these pieces, and when you are not using the other one, just make sure to cover that with some plastic wrap just so it's not exposed to any air. In the meantime, we're just going to take one of that roll and we're just going to carefully place that inside of our piping bag. So you can see it fits nice and easily. We're just going to twist the piping bag from the back, and I just decided to cut the excess piping bag on the edge just to make it easier for me to hold the piping bag. And now we're just going to be using this Wilton tip number 21 on top of our cupcakes to create these drop flower cupcake bouquets. So I'm just going to show you first one nice and close up. So you just want to apply pressure, and then you can kind of twist towards the left, and you're going to kind of get this beautiful small drop flower. You don't have to twist towards the left if you don't want. You can also just add pressure and keep it nice and straight. You also get a very nice, beautiful flower as well. And the more pressure you're going to add, the larger you're going to get a flower. The less pressure you're going to add, you're going to get a smaller flower. So just try to keep it as consistent as possible, but it doesn't really matter just because it's going to end up getting filled up and create a beautiful floral cupcake bouquet. So you can see how simple the buttercream flower bouquet is going to be. You're just going to keep turning your cupcake and then keep applying pressure with the other hand and creating these drop flowers. So just add pressure and then lift, add pressure and then lift. And then you want to keep turning your cupcake while you are creating these drop flowers. And it's okay if it's kind of overlapping on the edge of the cupcake liner and the cake. So at this point I've went and done the border all around, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue that same motion all the way to fill the center. So I think it was a little bit hard to show you guys, so I'm just going to show you up close. So add pressure and then turn, add pressure, and then you can kind of see that I'm adding pressure and then turning the piping bag towards the left. It's not necessary. That's kind of creating a twisted drop flower, or you can just add pressure and then lift up. So I've been doing a little bit of both. And you can see that you're getting these very beautiful two-tone colored cupcakes as well, and that's because of the method that I showed you earlier. So just add pressure and then lift up. And you can see that I'm kind of going row by row, and then like once I'm done one row, I'll just go towards the next row, keep turning my cupcake, and then keep creating those drop flowers. And then we're just going to fill the top as well. Add pressure, lift up, add pressure, lift up, until you reach the final gap. You have this very beautiful floral cupcake bouquet with these two-toned colors inside of them. So you can see that it's super simple, super easy, and you're only getting this with one piping tip, which is the Wilton tip number 21. So I'm just going to kind of do that same process. I am going to kind of fast forward the video a little bit, just because the process is very simple and easy, and I find them to be the perfect, easiest spring cupcake design. You can play around with the different types of colors that you want. You can do two-tone cupcake colors, play around with the cupcake liners, and then you can also kind of add a little bit of the mini eggs if you want to make it Easter themed, or add some sprinkles. You can get as creative as you want. So at this point you can see that I am almost finished with my first roll of buttercream that I created. So I'm getting the last few drop flowers. So you just want to take out that roll and the plastic wrap and then place the second one inside. So I know the piping bag is a little messy on the inside, but you're going to end up getting that same two-toned colored buttercream drop flowers without having to change your piping bag. So that's one thing that's really good about using this technique. So again, I'm going to move on to the next cupcake following that same technique of adding pressure and then lifting up. So if you thought that, creating some spring floral cupcake designs are going to be difficult, then I highly suggest trying to make this to impress anyone, like your guests, if you're hosting anything for Easter or for spring. They're also very beautiful for kind of like a bridal shower cupcake bouquet as well. So I really think you can get as creative as you want with these cupcake designs. So again, you can see the next roll was also finished, so I had to kind of stop halfway and then create an extra little roll as well. So following that same technique of creating that rectangle buttercream and then that blue buttercream in the center, creating that shape of a log and then rolling the buttercream with the plastic wrap. So you can see it's not too difficult. If you do end up kind of running out of that buttercream two-tone shade, you can quickly get rid of that previous buttercream that's inside your piping bag, and in the same piping bag, just place that roll inside, and then you can continue working with the same piping bag, and then you basically will have that same two-tone buttercream flower. So it is definitely a lot more easier rather than having to add the buttercream on the sides of your cupcake, and then if you run out, it's kind of harder. Whereas this, if you run out of your buttercream, you can just place that log right back into the same piping bag. So now I'm working on my last buttercream floral cupcake bouquet following that same drop flower technique, starting from the edge, kind of going towards my second row. Following that same method of applying pressure and then lifting up while I turn my cupcakes. And then as you make it to the top, just fill in any of those gaps. And you end up with this very beautiful floral cupcake bouquet using just one piping tip, which is the Wilton tip number 21. And you get these very beautiful floral cupcake bouquet cupcakes. I hope you guys found this video tutorial helpful, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of my future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in my next video.